Hey there, good afternoon, and welcome to Prog Monster. My name is Murph. I am the host of this show, a show dedicated to progressive rock, hard rock, heavy metal, and other forms of rock music. So today we're doing a recent album look back, I guess, or recent album review, I prefer to call it. So it's an album I got about 4 months ago. It's been on my playlist for maybe 3 of those months. Maybe somewhere in between 2 and 3 of those months. Pretty impenetrable at first. I got the album based on an episode that I saw on Sea of Tranquility on the Prog show, on the Tuesday night Prog show with with the guys who usually do that show. So anyways, one of the guys brought this album up, and I thought, wow, that looks like a really neat cover. I'd like to get this album. So I went out and I purchased it. I had to pay extra because it was an import, so it cost me close to $30 for the album. And largely I was disappointed at first and thought that I had just wasted my money. However, the album has grown on me. So the word impenetrable sometimes applies to some of these albums. For me, there's kind of two types of music. There's music that you have to sit down and really listen to, or headphones music is really good for that too. Some albums can do both, well, not all of them, but this one I think is qualified to do both. Anyways, before I start getting into this too much, this would be the album we're doing, album look back at, recent album review. This is called Amorphous Androgynous, and it also features Peter Hammill on it. A great album cover, I think. Fantastic. So I'm going to get into it a bit. I'll show you what the album looks like pretty much. So it's got this kind of a moony landscape. It's very spacey. Okay, if I was kind of labeling this based on what I've heard and what the album looks like in that, I would say it's like space rock, maybe with some psychedelic hints, a little bit of progressiveness in there as well. Very couple things about it. It's very well produced. It's put together very well. It has good, really clear sounds to it. Show you the book. There's the cover and the back cover. And you have, this is mostly just writing. You have this little kind of psychedelic page, which fits the album quite well. There's a lot of psychedelic stuff on this album, I think. There's psychedelic sound to it, and there you are. And that looks like Peter Hammill there. Anyways, and the album itself looks pretty neat as well. It's kind of a spacey color kind of thing on it. Anyways, it cost me about $30, so I don't put out that kind of money very easily. I've done it maybe 3 times. And this album, up until a few weeks ago, would have been in the classification of spent too much. Same with the Yes Quest album. I felt the same way about that. The Born Again album, which I paid almost $27 for, I think I got full value for it. I don't think any album's really worth that much, but sometimes you got to pay it if you want to get something. So anyways, we'll do the normal stuff we do here when we're doing an album. Just so you know, this is a kind of a one-off show. It's not part of a regular show. It's just this album I wanted to do for a while, but I didn't want to do it till I was ready to do it, until I'm able to penetrate it more and feel like I got a real good, solid grasp of it. So anyways, it's again, the vitals about it. The group is called Amorphous Androgynous, and it features Peter Hammill on vocals. It's released on February the 17th, 2021. It's an import European album, or UK album if you prefer. Produced at Mushroom Studio and La Petite in Le Petit Chateau, and at 9 ley liners as well. West. Its label is F Soul Digital, so it's kind of it's independent, I think, and of course it was produced by the members of Amorphous Androgynous. Okay, the musicians level, I'm going to do something I don't normally do because there is so much input by so many different musicians on this album that I'm just going to take the information that's relevant right off of the inside flap of the album itself. So appearing on this album, which the title of this album, by the way, which I didn't mention, was we persuade ourselves we are immortal. I think the whole album is basically a kind of a concept album about our mortality, you know. Peter Hammill, of course, does vocals. Ray Fenwick, lead and rhythm guitar, Symphony. Paul Weller, grand piano, acoustic lead guitar. Daniel Hale, drums. Ken Goots, bass. Brian Hopper, tenor and baritone sax. He's dominant on this album, by the way. Leona Evans, female lead intro area and backing vocals. Gaz Copain, sampling and ambient guitar, piano, bass, echoes and bass backing vocals. Morven Bryce, solo violin and orchestral leader. Yeah, there's a bit of violin on this album that's really different. Brian Dugans, FSOL Digital SX1 synthesizer, Appareggio and FX. Yeah, there's quite a bit of synthesizer in this. At least it kind of goes from the beginning of the album to the end. This kind of comes in and out as either it's a backing part or it's forward, but it's moving in and out all the time. Who else? Vladislav Isavi, I don't know if I spelled that right. Korg Z1 and Clavia Nord module, and the G2X Polvex. These are probably synthesizers, I'm guessing. Elaine Azavia, and she plays pretty much a synthesizer too. Jane Reeves, female and lead lyric vocals, We Persuade Ourselves, Cordial, Reassuring, Immortal. Justin Gibson, acoustic fingerpick, solo guitar and piano bridge. Anthony Agrigros, Restless Souls, guitar, FX. Alejandro Iglesias, bass and intro echoes. Stu Rowe, guitar in lick samples. Lucy Reeves, principal cello. Jennifer Derek Adams, backing vocals. Kendra Frost, high octave female rock riff vocals. String, the original score by Morven Bryce and Gaz Cobain. And so I'm not going to go on anymore. The rest of these are just technical things, but I tried to give you a general idea of who's on the album. Also, I wanted to show you that there's a lot of instrumentation on this album. A lot of different sounds. Some of the sounds I'm sure that during my notes during each of the songs I didn't get exactly right. Sorry, I'm just trying to get the last piece of this in here so we don't lose it. Amorphous Androgynous and Peter Hammill. Album is called We Persuade Ourselves We Are Immortals. Okay, so there's basically, having done that, there's 6 tracks on the album. The longest track is the first track, and the second longest track is the last track, and then there's 4 reasonably spaced tracks in the middle, ranging from anywhere from 3 to 5 minutes or so. there's no real break between songs. They just kind of drift in and into each other. It's almost like it's a one song but broken into parts. It doesn't list it that way on the album, but that's kind of the way I get it. It kind of be like, kind of reminds me that way of Close to the Edge. There's all kinds of different tracks built into one track, Close to the Edge, and they drift in and out, so you don't really know where the break is, and there's no break here on them. So the album has some really good instrumentation on it. It's the synthesizers and the overall chord sounds are really good on the album, I think. It's a very detailed album. Like, I'm almost wanting to say it's beyond my grasp musically. I don't think, listening to it, I don't feel like it's beyond my grasp, but understanding what I'm hearing may be beyond my grasp. That's probably more of a better way of putting it. Okay, so I'll do a little bit of the breakdown of the songs on the album. So the first song is Persuade Ourselves, or Immortal. And I'm going to need to put my glasses on because I did make some notes, but they're kind of tiny because there's so many of them. Okay, so it would help if I could actually see out of these dirty glasses. So the problem is I get my fingers all over them and then I don't wipe them before I get ready. That's better. Okay, so the opening of this song, kind of eerie, which is a theme that pretty much runs through the album. There's an in and out eerie feeling to it, kind of spacey feeling if you prefer. Some people like the word eerie, but that sometimes kind of conjutates up a feeling like like you're about to, like a horror movie type thing. This is not so much that way. It's more of a spacey sound, I guess, is the best way to put it. This, of course, is the longest track on the album. There's a saxophone that is in and out and fairly dominant on this song, and actually throughout the whole album. Now, this sax, I believe, is an alto. Correct me on that if I'm wrong. I'm not a sax expert, but it sounds like an alto sax to me. Does a bit of a lead part really well. The piano, the keyboards, and the guitar all fill in the blank areas to make it a kind of a solid sound throughout the whole song. The guitar solos are very kind of eerie. What else? But the guitar. The one thing I wanted to say about the guitar solos, they're kind of eerie, kind of reminiscent that you get from David Gilmour, but they don't sound like David Gilmour. There's no sound of David Gilmour here. It's just that's the style they're played in. It's quite tastefully done, actually. What else did I write notes about here? Of course, I said it's pretty spacey, actually a mixture of kind of spacey and psychedelic feel. Like, you get that kind of 60s psychedelic feel, but it's undertoned by this kind of spacey feel that you get in the album quite a bit too. What else did I want to say about the album? Of course, it's very symphonic. There's like a symphony playing on this album, so you get that kind of symphonic sound to it throughout the album as well. Lots of saxophone. Just like the keyboards are very rhythmic too. They kind of play the rhythmic part to the album as well. Okay, so we'll go on to track number 2, which is called High Mortality. This is a theme that you're going to see throughout the album, about being immortal and being mortality, and about kind of talking about how we that song actually had vocals on it as well. I didn't mention the vocals. Peter Hammill does the vocals here. Now, I want to say up front, so that there's no confusion here, I am not a huge Peter Hammill fan. I have a difficulty with his vocals, but he's not bad on this album. He's not bad. Of the albums I've listened to with him on it, he's not too bad here. Most of the stuff I have is, of course, Vandergraaf Generator, which I like a lot, but his vocals are just tough to swallow sometimes. So anyways, we get into this next song, High Mortality. It's a shorter track, about 4 or 5 minutes, I believe. I didn't write the amount down. It has, again, it goes from the end of the first song, goes right into this kind of spacey start. There's a good guitar solo bit that leads in as well. Song's bass dominated. There's a lot of forward bass on this, which is quite good, I think. More in the middle than the ends of the song, but it's definitely there. This also is an instrumental. There's no vocals on it. A good listen. Very similar to the first song, but maybe a bit slower, in my opinion. The third track, Immortality Break. Okay, so this is another song in the theme. It's got this kind of choir-like vocals that start off in the song, giving it that kind of angelic feel, but angelic in a spacey kind of way. And you're going to find that most of the stuff that they put on this album, whether it's psychedelic or whether it's choir or whether it's keyboard solo or guitar solo or whatever it is, has a spacey kind of attachment to it. So it's kind of, you're not getting a clear kind of, this is psychedelic, this is choir, this is guitar solo. It's not that. It's kind of mixed in with the spacey part. So what else about it? It's pretty heavy. There's a pretty heavy drum riff that goes through the whole length of this song. I think it's pretty heavy. It's quite nice. It kind of beefs up the backbone a bit, I guess, if you want. There's a multi-vocal collaboration by several people here. You can hear them doing different levels of vocals here to kind of add to that kind of spacey sound. At the end is this kind of keyboard bit, which kind of reminds me of the Thin Lizzy song Angel of Death. It has that start in Angel of Death, that keyboard start. It's got that sound to it, and I think it even sounds a little bit like that. So towards the end of the song here. Okay, so then we move along into the fourth song, which is the first one that doesn't have some kind of mortality thing written in it. Physically I'm here, mentally I'm far, far away. So and you know what, that actually fits this bill quite a bit, because you're physically present when you're listening to this album. You're hearing it all, but it takes you on a trip elsewhere, somewhere in the cosmos, I think. Violin synthesizer, really well done here, I think. Just like tastefully done, I think. The organ kind of reminds me of a Biotron, which is the instrument you will hear on Yes's Tornado. Not so much Hammond organ, which is quite popular with a lot of these shows. I'm not a huge Hammond organ lover. Hammond organ to me sounds that kind of Bon Teppy sound to it. I like some Hammond organ, but it just sounds kind of really dated. I prefer the Biotron. I know I'm probably in the minority here. A lot of people doing this kind of stuff prefer the Hammond and find the Biotron too thin, too eerie sounding. I like the Biotron, and I think that's what we're hearing here is Biotron. It could be something I'm not aware of, but that's what it sounds like. There's of course no vocals on this song. It's another instrumental. Organ, guitar, and sax solos throughout, alternating a little bit of each. Not very long, not lengthy, just touching. Not like a super powerhouse thing that's dominating. Just like they come in and out, each of them. Saxophone, guitar, organ, all just kind of little bits in here. I like it because it gives different textures to the song. There's a chorus of synthetic spacey sound throughout the whole song, as there is throughout the entire album. And it ends with a kind of new age bird sounds. I don't know if that makes sense. You ever buy those new age albums for meditation and stuff like that, and it'll have all these kind of bird sounds? You'll hear this at the beginning of Yes is Closer to the Edge. There's a little bit of that here, but again, even though there's that sound, same as you get from Yes and the same as you get from those new age things, it's beefed up and hitting on the back of that spacey sound that you get throughout the album. Okay, so the next one is the number 5 song, is the Psych Recap. Okay, there's a really likable bass riff here, and drums, like, they go together. There's a really nice riffing there by them. And it's pretty heavy on the synthesizer, this song. Some kind of eerie, spacey vocals, whichever you prefer. I tend to think of eerie as horror and spacey as more psychedelic, right? But they're a little bit of both here. So the underlying riff, of course, with the bass is dominating throughout this particular track. I actually listened to this so intent, I can't even remember if there's vocals on it or not. So I'm not sure, I can't remember. Okay, and then you have the final song, Symphony, on the theme of mortality. So it is basically just a reiteration of everything you've heard on the album. Like all the different things you hear, some real good keyboard riffs, some real psychedelic spacey sounds, noises and stuff like that. I want to say some parts of the album where the bass is kind of dominating kind of reminds me of some Pink Floyd kind of dominated bass, but again with that kind of spacey background to it. So it doesn't really sound like Floyd, except for the bass itself does. So yeah, so a pretty solid album. But if you're getting into this album, if you decide that you want to give it a try, don't just listen to it once. The first time you listen to it, it's going to be almost impenetrable. It's like a wall. You know, I listened to a lot of music and I found this very difficult. I was disappointed at first because I wanted something instant. But I've also discovered through my history and through my time that the albums that stick with me the longest are usually the ones that are more impenetrable. So I have like some that you like immediately, some that you listen to a couple times and then you like a lot, some that are, you like them at the beginning, but they take some listening to really like them a lot. And then you get these ones that are impenetrable. Most of the Gentle Giant kind of albums fall into this category. Some of the Pink Floyd is like this. Even some of the Yes is like this. And that just comes with prog music in general. It's not a sit down, boogie out to music. It doesn't fit that way. So I tend to think of my music in a couple of categories. There's the stuff I put on when I'm cleaning the house. And that's got to be immediate. It's got to be poppy, or it's got to have beaty, or it's got to have some energy to it, something I can get into right away. For the most part, I do that. Some of these older progressive stuff I can do that with too, because I'm familiar with it. But usually the progressive stuff requires me to do a couple of things. Stop and sit down and listen to it straight on. So we just like concentrating listening, or you can put it on headphones and listen to it that way. Not all of this stuff is great on headphones, but a lot of it's more accessible on headphones. So if you're taking this album and you decide you want to give it a try, I wished I'd done this, but I didn't. I initially tried to listen to it while I was cleaning. It didn't work right, and then I was just getting disappointed. I didn't want to hear it, but I forced myself to keep playing it, and then I tried sitting and listening to it just recently, and it's come a long way. It takes a lot of listening to. I've probably listened to it in its entirety about 10 or 15 times now, and it's only now just starting to penetrate me. So if you don't like this type of music, If you don't like spacey kind of music, or very intricate, or very involved, or a lot of different musicianship, or a lot of psychedelic noise or anything like that, then don't buy this, because you're just wasting your time. But overall, I give the album a pretty good rating. I like it. I think the lyrics are good. The story is good. The album cover is fantastic. The organization of the album and the production of the album is very good. The songs are very spacey and very psychedelic. If you like that, it's really good. But just be prepared to listen to it for a lengthy bit of time, not just a couple times. Say this is garbage and throw it out. If that's the way you want to, if you're going to listen to this a couple times and try to decide whether you like it or not, you might as well not bother buying it. So if you really want something that's going to last and give you some penetration and make you like think and make you listen to it over and over again until it starts to grow on you, this is a good album for that. So there you go. Recent album review. This album came out about a year and a half ago or so it's taken me 3 or 4 months just to get into it, and it's given Peter Hammill a little bit higher up esteem in my books than he was getting with the Van der Graaf Generator, which I'm having a great deal of difficulty listening to. I have a couple other albums, both well-known albums, and I had them in one of them in my playlist, and it just had to go back out because I couldn't fathom it. So I will now it'll give me maybe a little bit more time to get into them. And I had the same problem with Gentle Giant. I bought one album like back in the 80s, 3 Friends I think it was, and it just took forever to get into. I just said I'll never buy this stuff again. But I got talked into buying another one, and I like it quite a bit. It's on my playlist. It's up until recently was probably my favorite album. Since been replaced by the Tea Party's album. But really solid album. But be prepared to listen to it directly or on headphones and let it absorb into you over time, because that's what it's going to take with this album. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed this episode of recent album review, and I hope that if you did, please like and subscribe. If you've got any experience with this album, I'd be interested in hearing it. There's quite a few instruments on here that I'm kind of thinking I know what they are, but I'm not 100%. So anyways, I hope you have a good day, and from Prog Monster,